So, so Dream Report. So what Dream Report is a reporting software solution specifically designed for industrial process automation. And the three kind of key business props I think of Dream Report are, the wide range of connectivity that it has for native integration. So that meaning, not just AVEVA products, but either open protocols like OPC or ODBC, as well as other historians, other SCADA solutions. I think they have upwards of 80 or 90 drivers within the product. So the other two are, that Dream Report is, extremely easy to use. There's no scripting involved. It's just essentially just learning, how the functionality of the software works, and it's a lot of combo, drop-down box configuration, checkbox configuration of what features I want within specific objects. And then lastly, the scalable complete package solution. So in terms of scalability, right, you can have a single installation and manage a large set of a large data set of reportable tags. But in addition to that, you can distribute and view those reports in the manner in which you need or like to, whether that be a PDF, Excel, sending them off to email, or even viewing them in a HTML5 browser. So why do customers implement Dream Report? Usually it falls into a category of three different reasons. The first one, and generally the most common, is compliance. Some regulatory agency needs them to send regular reports, and instead of doing it the old-fashioned way, where so I've seen customers pull up their SCADA screen and write down values that they see from their SCADA application onto a pen and paper, or even Excel, and then format that information into the proper format every month to that regulatory agency. Whereas within Dream Report, you can set it up initially, and then as the data comes in, it'll automatically generate that report when it's needed and the format that it needs to be in. And then the last two kind of fall hand in hand, which are kind of investigative analysis, just to better understand and run specific businesses, as well as just to understand the data behind the process that they work with day in and day out, and then see if there's, based on that understanding, if any improvements can be made. So architecturally, how it works is you first have your data sources, and typically it's an existing data source, whether that's a SQL, any kind of SQL database or process historian. But as well as you can connect to real-time data sources like PLCs, for example, and log that data to Dream Report itself. So very little time is actually spent connecting to data sources. Most of your time within Dream Report is spent making the report look pretty, designing and configuring the report to either comply with regulatory agencies or just company preference or policy. And after you've configured the report, you'll go ahead and generate that, whether it's automatically or ad hoc, and distribute that report in the format or methodology that you need it to be in. As I mentioned, PDF, Excel, HTML5 browser, print it off, on your printer, have it sent to your printer, 8 a.m. every month on the first when you come into work, or even have access on your mobile phone. So a couple functionality that we'll just touch base on, and then we'll get into the product itself. So the Dream Report web portal allows for not just your traditional static report, but a more interactive and dynamic report capabilities that can be employed. And so with that, what I mean by that is that, you have, for this example, you have, a couple temperature tags and some statistical calculations. But if I were to select this minimum calculation, I can see the data behind that calculation and even view it in a chart, for example, as well. And most, if not all, objects that created within Dream Report can have some sort of web dynamic nature to them. So with the Dream Report web portal, gains access to PC and mobile support, and that's done through those web clients. And so the same reports that you see on your desktop, you can view and see on your phone via iOS, Android, or even Windows. So one of the other features with Dream Report is manual data entry. In this example, you have a water sample, and they're measuring pH levels of that sample. And so that manual collected data, I input it, within the Dream Report portal, and then that inputted data gets saved and logged to ultimately be reported on. One of the hassles with manual entry is you have to do some type of management after that data entry, whether that's taking it from paper and pen and putting it into an Excel, or filing all the log sheets in a binder, which can be difficult to retrieve and manage. And just another example of manual data entry. And so lastly, user management, defining who has access to which reports, integrating local or Active Directory users. And then also you can employ version control. So as iterations of your reports change, you can create versions of those reports. But if you need, for whatever reason, to roll back to a previous version, you can simply just roll back to that version rather than either undo or create those changes again. You can just roll that back. And then, although not typically seen in water wastewater, but there's audit trail tracking as well as electronic signatures. So that being said, for those following along in the VM, go ahead and get that handy. I forgot to do this. What can be kind of confusing sometimes, I'll change my background. So your background is different from mine. Go ahead and change that. Okay. So if we go ahead and open up Dream Report. And go ahead and log into the training project folder. What we have is a report template and then a couple of different reports. So this is a more traditional report, and then this is kind of more of a dynamic web-enabled, dashboard or report, what have you. But before we get into generating these reports, I think what I'd like to do is just show the driver configuration section. And so here we have the wide range of different types of native drivers, and whether it's ours, like SciTech or Indusoft or Wonderware. We have GE, AspenTech, Rockwell, Siemens, and then as well as the open protocols, ODBC, as well as OPC. What we've done is, oh, and then here, I'll go ahead and if we double click on one of these reports, like let's say the monthly water reports, we can see some report settings. And so the first thing is just the report name, typically, and some other general information. We have the report name format. So in this case, we're just having every file name be the report name and the timestamp of the generation of the report. And here's kind of a key section is the report time definition. So depending on how frequently we want this report to be automatically generated, either daily or weekly or monthly or yearly. So for example, in our daily or weekly, it's going to be generated at noon every day of the week. Well, let's say, we don't like to work too hard, so we don't work on Sunday and Saturday. So we uncheck those boxes and then the report will be generated, just on the weekdays. Same thing could be generated on a monthly or yearly basis. You just select the day of the month and the time. But not only on a time definition, you can create reports on certain events. So that being said, you enable this and choose the tag that you want the event to trigger the report generation, and that could be like a condition. When a certain tag is equal, greater than, equal to, less than or equal to, that sort of thing, certain value, or just whenever that item changes. Generation priority is just prioritizing if you have multiple reports being generated at once, how you want your report to prioritize them. And then lastly, what I'll go over is report file format. So another important section of this report settings dialog box. So the report target is the available report formats that I can create the report in. In this case, we just have PDF and web. But if I wanted to bring it into Excel or email or my printer, I can choose those as well. Page format. And then, after I generate a report, automatically open up in, this type of format. In this case, it's a PDF. Any questions about report settings? Okay. So before we generate a report, down in the bottom left-hand corner, you see number of items in a project. So that's kind of how Dreamport license tags. It's not how many tags you bring into Dreamport, it's how many unique tags you use within a project. So across all these reports, I'm only using 6 unique tags. So even, for example, let's say I had, from my historian, I brought in, 100 tags. If I'm only using 6 across these reports, Dreamport only counts against 6. So that being said, let's go ahead and start running the project. So if you go to the left-hand side, click this Run Project icon. If you need to save changes, go ahead and click Yes. And what will pull up is the Runtime Management Console. So this Runtime Management Console is a place to generate reports on an ad hoc basis. And so One of the ways you can generate reports is if I select on my monthly water report, right click and click generate. You'll see it's generating in the queue right now. And once it's done generating, because we set that parameter, it'll automatically open up a PDF. So here's our report. And we have a monthly pumpage object over the course of the last month. And so between our different stations, we have pumpage values in million gallons, and then the sum of those values in the total pumpage column. And so this is done by what we call a step table. So every row has been defined to be a single day, and that can be changed as well. And then down at the bottom, we have a footer, which is basically just the summation of all the monthly values or the daily values of that month. We have some summary statistics data for analog values, or analog tags per se. So we have max, min, average, and sum over the course of the last month. We have some discrete values. So, and this is just some, very little of the types of calculations that can be done. We'll investigate this and you'll see, there's a wide range of possibilities. But for this discrete data, we just have, number of times it was on or off and the duration of when it was running or down. And then that availability of that specific piece of equipment. And then lastly, we have a trend. So this is station 1 and station 2. And they're, raw data values displayed over the course of a month. And then what's unique is, or not unique, but just something to note is what we've done is we flagged these trends to, if they dip below 0.9, to flag those trend pens in a nice bright red. So just, just to show that you can, kind of, grab the, the report viewers' attention to certain values, or value ranges. So we'll close that out. And so here I'll just kind of investigate, these objects a little bit further. And we'll make some changes and then see how those changes get applied to Dream Report. So with this first object, if we left click it once, right, on the left-hand side, right, we can see that it's a step table. So the step table object is right here. And so if you don't know what a step table is you first define your time period. And in this case, I want to show the last month's worth of data. And then you define your step. And so a step is just every row. In this case, I want every row to encompass one day. But I could have it, encompass maybe just a week or, maybe an hour. But I'll leave it as just a day. But it doesn't have to be time-based, right? It can be, when, on all item values. It can be on, for manufacturing customers, on specific batches, that sort of thing. And then in appearance, we've defined our columns. So the time, the day is going to be the step start time. And I'll just show one of these is this step data. And so if we edit it, we see the object name and said this is just tank 1 flow. And we've picked our tag for tank 1. Applied a correction factor for, to get our units correct. And then have a statistical function. In this case, we just have sum. but it can be a wide range of different types of things. Performance analysis, or even alarm analysis for those alarm tags. So we can go ahead and cancel. And then there's just formatting options, visual options right here. I won't go too much in depth on these. Same thing goes for this these summary statistics tables, and we'll go ahead and add to this tank summary statistics table. So if you double click this, it'll open up this automatic statistical table. And so right now you see the 4 functions that we've already chosen for these tank tags. But let's say we wanted to add the maximum value and minimum value to those calculations. We just check those checkboxes. And so that was just for our tank pumpage 1 tag. So we'll just have to do the same for 2 and 3. So now for all 3 of these tags, we should have 6 functions checked. And again, this is doing the calculation over the last month. So we'll click OK, and we'll see kind of that those new columns appear. And let's reformat this, make this a little bit bigger. Maybe resize these rows a little bit. And so let's go ahead and see how these changes get applied. So what we can do, instead of, we're already running our project, so we can just reload our reports, 2 icons below. Yes, we want to save our changes. And you can still generate the report the first way I told you. But if I select, the other way is if I select this and I pick my format, PDF, and then select this trend pen to generate files, it'll accomplish the same goal. So if we scroll down, we have our time of max and time of min correlating to these values here. Now, it seems like we didn't need to do a little bit more formatting, but that shouldn't be too difficult. Any questions? Okay. One of the other things that we can change, we'll investigate, is this line chart. And so if we double click this line chart, you can see we have our tank 1 and tank 2 tags selected. So for our tank 1 tag, we'll go ahead and, instead of, notice the same correction factors apply, but instead of maybe just raw values, we'll just choose moving average. And again, it's over that same 1 month time period. If we click on appearance, right, we have, visual options, right? Different display options, units to add, as well as, the chart name. But down at the bottom, right, these 2 check marks enable us to make, when we start viewing things in the web portal, the object interactive. And so this allows me to interact with the graph itself, and this allows me to show the raw data behind the trend. We'll go ahead and click OK. And We'll go ahead and reload our reports and save. And we'll go ahead and generate that monthly water report. There we go. So left click first and then right click generate. All right, so here's our new report. Again, we still have our time of max, time of min, and then our addition is we made that tank one tag, the blue trend pen, a moving average. And so you can see that it's changed from raw values to just that moving average. And you know, we still see the red marker based on below 0.9. Any questions about that? Okay, so the second report that we're going to investigate, and we're going to open it up in the web portal, is this dashboard. And so this is a kind of a dynamic report, and how we're going to leverage it is within the Dreamport web portal. So we have some familiar web objects like the trend pen or the analogs, the automatic statistics table. But we also have some unique web objects, these time picker objects, these buttons, and even this combo box, which are only enabled in a web environment. So if you still have open the runtime management console, go ahead and open that up. And if you don't, just go ahead and reload your reports, and it'll pull this up. So Wendy, if your runtime console is not running, just go ahead and run the project. Click there. And if when it pulls up again and is not still running, let me know. So I'll be on the lookout if you have still further issues with it. But so moving forward, in this project access section, if we click on the drop-down icon and open up or click on the Open Web Portal, it's kind of a quick and easy way to open up this Dreamport Web Portal. Now we could just type in localhost /dr web, and that'll pull us directly. But if we forget, it's an easy way to do it. So here's the Dreamport Portal landing page. Something to note is that this can be customized in a few different ways. And one of those ways, for example, is to create a report that's dynamic in nature, and have that be the landing page. So you get to leverage, all the unique formatting features of Dreamport and have those kind of features be the landing page of the Dreamport web portal. But let's go ahead and, so we saw this in the monthly water reports in a static report, but if we click on web and it'll load and generate, there we go. We get this dynamic nature of the trend pen, right? Because we selected those two checkboxes. Now, if we select the legend, we can hide those trend pens. We can use our mouse wheel to scroll in and out. You can highlight sections of the trend to zoom in and click on the magnifying glass to reset everything. This is showing you kind of, the dynamic nature of things. If I select this kind of folder, I can select my tags. Let's say I'll select both of them, and it'll pull up the raw data over the course of that month. And you can export that to a CSV file. Now, if I view any questions about that? Alrighty. If I put the water production database dashboard in our web report, so this is viewing it as so I clicked it as a PDF. It'll be easier if we go back to the home page. And then from here, water production database dashboard, I get a server error. Okay, Robert. Let's check yours. Okay. We'll go ahead and close this out and configure IIS. It's weird that happened because these all should be the same VMs. Okay, and let's open up the web portal. Oh, okay, so you're in your water, wastewater section. So that was kind of confusing on my end when I set these up. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to close out of yours, open up Dream Report again. And click on training. And if I run my project, okay. Don't worry about it, Robert. Okay, so this project is now running, and open up the web portal. Okay, so from here, you should be able to gain access to, let's say, the water production. Ugh. What did I do? Let's try to configure the IIS. There we go. Okay. I'll go back to my VM. And I'll go into my water production dashboard. How these objects work, we have our start and end time time pickers. And so if we select the start time, we can go back, and let's just say we want to view the last 2 months of data. So today's the 24th, so we'll go to April 24th. So we got two months, and we want to select our areas or tags associated to these. So we select our 3 different areas, and how I did that was, I click the top one and shift click the bottom one, or you can, control click them all. And so after I've clicked, set my, these 2 parameters, go ahead and click refresh. And so it populates the data. Now again, you see the similar kind of dynamic trend pen that we saw with our monthly water reports. If you were to hide the trend pens, you can do so. And at the top right, we have another summary statistical table. In this case, it's just displaying the date of the max month, the date of the max month, and that corresponding production total for each specific area. Down at the bottom, we have a column chart where the values are stacked on top of each other. Again, dynamic as if I hit the trend pen, or view the data behind it using that folder icon. And then lastly, we have another one of those step tables. Instead of the first one where we saw it was every day spitting out a new row, in this case, it's just every month spit out a new row and provide max values for those related areas. And then based on all those months that we've searched for, give me the max month value in the footer. So this was actually kind of a demo we did for a customer who was wanting to kind of translate their existing dashboarding tool into something a little bit more user-friendly and a little bit more cost-effective than what they were using beforehand. And so this was kind of our working demo with that. And I'll try it. It didn't work in my first session, so I didn't troubleshoot it enough. But because this web report can only initially be created in the web, you can create these action buttons where after we've generated in the web, we can create a savable file by generating a PDF. So if I select this, it should, see it's giving me that error. So I'll have to investigate this. But what this button is supposed to do, and I have done it in the past, I promise it works, is we will generate a PDF where then you can take this dashboard and save it. And so, yeah. Any questions about these dynamic dashboards or reports, however you want to define them? So if we do maybe a larger, let's say, so January, the full 2020, and refresh, see what happens. So we get lots of data. So again, this is going to be kind of a convoluted trend pen because we're collecting collecting or displaying raw data values. So over the course of 6 months, it's a lot of values to smush into a small trend. But I just wanted to show just the difference of that step chart or step table. Okay. So something else to note is, even though I didn't actually save all those monthly water reports files that I created previously, the web portal will log it, or Dreamport will log it. So if we select on the PDF monthly water report, right, we can view all those iterations that we just created today. So for example, right, we can see the monthly water report that had the trend pen as normal and not dynamic, and it didn't have the time of min and time of max. But if we look at the more recent one, it'll have those values and the different trend pen. or trend chart. And it'll coordinate or group those charts, into these specific categories. So this week, this month, and then past months. In this case, I've only created these VMs a week or two ago, and so it's only going to encapsulate the month of June. So that's kind of the web portal. We've gone over, some of these objects, right? Just to kind of re-clarify these objects. The time stamp picker are these objects, which allow us to pick different time ranges, or allow the objects. Essentially, what these objects do is they leverage, instead of saying, hey, last month, which we did on the other time range, these objects will get their data based on whatever time range we set here. So they're all referencing this. The action buttons are these two buttons here. So you can have a refresh action button or generate PDF. And there's different other parameters that you can have these buttons do as well. Hyperlinks, which we haven't used. The combo box is this here. And then we haven't used these last two, which is manual input and a tree object, which is kind of like a hierarchical structure of data sources. The manual input is what we saw in the PowerPoint presentation for those lab samples. So within that web portal, you'll have a space where a user can manually input information and then save it to the Dream Report database. Some other things, we have some, more advanced SPC charts and histograms, to leverage, further SPC calculations. I think on, I forget which one of these, but you could have SPC values, I think maybe in the summary statistics, or it might have been in this step chart. The step table. So if we investigate this, the statistical function, yeah, so all these SPC functions are available. So they aren't available out of the box within Dream Report, but there is a module that does enable these options. So are there any questions about, something, maybe you're curious about, unique instances, examples, you're like, hey, I have this project. No, so Wendy, the data source is actually the internal data source. So if I go to driver configuration, so when you download Dream Report, anybody who's downloaded Dream Report actually has access to the same data. And so how it was configured, I guess, it was configured from, if you go to Open Protocols, ODBC, and it's ODBC historical values. And so I've created a driver, I named it process. And so this process is, if I go to configure, right, it has this sample data. It's just this batch table. And then I've identified a timestamp for it, and then click, it's going to be in a column structure, click done, I clicked add, and it gets delivered over in this driver's list. But if you can see, I have, and this was, I think, brought over from my on-premise VM. And so with that, I was working with customer examples where I actually was pulling insight data into Dream Report. How that's done is, if I give a name, test, And so this is where I copy and paste that REST API route here, and then my username, which would be my email address and password. I test the connection, and then, you know, if I just want raw data, you know, I can use that, or summary statistics, and then click OK, and then add as well, and then click that add button. So I guess while we're there, I can show you where that server route is connected from. So go to our water workshop. And Insight Suite, administration. Then we go to integration settings. And that REST API. I get a bit. Okay, so then we go scroll down to this basic authentication endpoint. We expand it just to reveal it. We can copy it, and I guess while I'm here, I'll just go ahead and do it. So we'll have our water workshop, and we'll go ahead and configure. We'll paste that server route, my login credentials, and I'll test the connection. That's right. Maybe my password's wrong. Not sure if SkyTap's letting me. California, wonderwhere.com. Copy. That's right. I'm not sure. It might be a SkyTap thing, but that is how you do it. I promise. And I test the connection and validate, and click add, and then your driver list would be here. And so then all that mixer data that we saw in the first session, if you're a part of it, would be available to you in Dreamforce. Okay, any other questions? I think we're moving along quite nicely. Of course, there's a wide variety of things that we haven't discussed. You know, we kind of glossed over a lot of the highlights, but you know, even in single day workshops where we do the whole day in Dreamforce, we cover much more and see it all, how it is all configured.